Meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the committee agenda may do so when the item comes up for discussion. You'll have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. Please come forward for more accurate recording purposes. Would you... Take two. I will now call the meeting of the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the Standing Committee agenda may do so when the item is up for discussion. You'll have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. Please come forward to the table and you will be recognized for accurate recording purposes. We ask all present to speak directly in the microphone. Would the clerk please call the roll? Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here. I will note there are no minutes to approve this month. As you will recall, our December 15th meeting was canceled. That takes us to committee agenda item number 1, discussion and recommendations relating to excess. Is that first? Okay. All right. Item number 1 is a discussion recommendation relating to access a fee to staff parades and marathons held in Wyandotte County. I'll turn it over to Gordon Criswell, our Assistant County Administrator, to present.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff has brought this issue before the Standing Committee because we need some direction. Kansas City, Kansas, Wyandotte County is one of the only municipalities in the metropolitan area that does not charge anything at all when we staff a marathon or a parade in our community. On the one hand, it's great that people want to come to our community and do 5Ks and have parades, and on the other hand, I've got Chief Ziegler here who's saying this is a staffing concern and we just need some direction from you all in terms of what our policy will be as it relates to these events. In your packet you will see we did a study back this summer of all of the municipalities in the metropolitan area in terms of what they charge when they put on a parade or marathon or such in their community. We have to figure out a way to support these activities and at the same time protect the public safety, and we just need some discussion and direction from you all on administratively how you want us to handle these going forward.
Commissioner Maddox.
Well, my question, Mr. Criswell, is from where does this discussion derive? I mean, was there some kind of, is it something big financial that we're not reaching, or where does this conversation derive from?
Well, this initial conversation came up on the former Chief Hansen, who basically her administrative assistant was receiving parade permit applications. And one, former Chief Hansen didn't feel that her administrative assistant should be making decisions on how we staff marathons and parades. And so she asked the administration to look into it. I started by researching our ordinance. By ordinance, the chief of police has to approve these activities. What's happening in our community is we have a lot of organizations, some of them are homegrown, some of them are out of our community, who come to the chief's office and they want to have an event. And that means that between the police department, our Public Works and Streets Department, and Parks and Recreation Department sometimes, all of these agencies have some cost associated with putting on these events. And rather than administratively say, we're going to do this or we're going to charge this amount for these kinds of activities, we've come to you tonight to, one, bring it to your attention, and two, get some direction in terms of how you want us to proceed with these kinds of activities.
Okay, and my follow-up question is, what services do we provide as a city or police department to those people putting on parades?
You want to answer that, Chief? I mean, I can.
The issue that we're having with the PD is the volume of requests that we get for parades and marathons has grown. I've denied 2 already this year where they've requested a marathon in the Village West area. They want to shut down State, Village West Parkway in parallel to put on a marathon. So I denied those because of the disruption to the traffic pattern in that area. But the other thing that comes with that is that they always make a request that we provide police services. Well, a lot of our local groups like the Juneteenth, the Polska Days, those kind of things.
Excuse me.
We do provide police service for those as much as we can. We have community policing show up and help with the event. But to go and provide police services to these events that seem to be growing, both in volume and in size, you know, to shut down the entire Village West area for a marathon would be very costly. It costs us approximately, the average cost of an officer per hour on duty is $30 an hour. Then you have a cost of operating a police vehicle. It would take a lot of police resources to shut down the intersections for an event like that to take place. A lot of our local events aren't that big in scope, and we've been participating with them on a normal basis. It's the request that we're getting a large volume from outside KCK, and that becomes cumbersome because they expect us to provide free police service for their event.
So not only does the chief incur some cost, but depending upon what the event is, our Parks and Recreation Department might also incur costs with putting up barriers, removing barriers. And so all of these associated costs, none of these departments really have budgeted for them. And so we just need some direction from you all as to how you want us to proceed as a matter of policy. Again, we don't want to discourage people from having events in our community. We also want to support what I would call our homegrown organizations in their events, like Juneteenth, like Polska Days. But I didn't feel like we needed to just unilaterally make that decision without some policy direction from you all.
So by the numbers, a rough estimate, how much is spent yearly by the city in regards to providing services for people who put on parades and events?
Well, honestly, Commissioner, I didn't gather those numbers. I don't know that off the top of my head right now.
Okay.
What we focused on is, in your packet there, all of the municipalities in the metropolitan area and what they charge for these kinds of events. That was sort of our starting point. If you want us as a way of assessing what we should be charging to gather that information, we can do that, but I don't know that figure off the top of my head tonight.
Is there a way, we know the ones that we currently have?
Yes, sir.
That are local. Is there a way that, you know, like we put a lock on what's here now and then for anything that comes in outside the local realm that we charge them? Is that a possibility?
If you all see that as the policy direction staff should take, that's a possibility.
Board Member Bryant.
Do we currently, I mean, look at them different between what is, let's say, a not-for-profit, you know, a Turner Days parade or a Leavenworth Road Central Avenue parade versus a for-profit of, even if it's a charitable event where there's a charge for like a marathon or 5K runs and stuff where there's a charge? I mean, have we thought about that approach where we separate them, where the fees are paid if there's going to be an entrance fee?
Well, right now, we don't make any distinction at all because we don't charge anybody anything.
Yeah, but I think what Jeff's talking about is some of the, when you do a marathon, like when my daughter used to do them, you had to pay an entry fee, like 5K or whatever.
Yeah.
And if they're making money, you know, we ought to charge them. But I think like the Turner Parade, Juneteenth, Leavenworth Road Parade, the Polsky Day, I don't know if I would necessarily touch those, but I think if we've got outside groups coming in and wanting to shut down our community, that perhaps they should have to pay. I don't really want to jack with the ones that are local, but I would sure take a dime out of ones that weren't.
May I ask? Oh, go ahead.
Well, and that was just, you know, would be, off the top of my head, a recommendation maybe, is to look at it as, if it's a for-profit event, or if it's an event that is pulling in money in some way or another, then maybe those are the ones that the expenses are. So maybe you don't recoup all the expenses throughout a year, but you can start recouping, you know, you start having an expense to it so that people have to spend a little more time in the planning section so that they're making sure that they're covering costs, because there will be some for the city.
We actually talked about different cost levels or different tiers for our homegrown nonprofit groups as opposed to groups coming from the outside. We didn't know where we wanted to start with a number. And my thinking was that was a policy decision that we needed to get from the governing body about where we start. Chief Ziegler has some ideas about just the very notion, Commissioner, that you were articulating, but we didn't want to get out ahead of you guys and do something without your sanction or support.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Okay, maybe it's mine, it's weird. Thank you. Oh, it's attacking me. Okay, thank you, sir. So a place to start, as you were recommending, is to see what's really costing us now to assist in anything we're doing, right? The real outlay.
Yes.
And then to find out, the other thing is what the police department recommends as point of interest. In other words, where do we really want these people to apply? Do we want them to apply to the police department, or is there a better spot for them to apply?
Well, I believe by ordinance, they have to make application initially with the chief.
Yeah, well, ordinances change, don't they?
Well, yes, apparently.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking, if we're talking about making changes to make things work for our community, then, you know, ordinances don't usually get in the way if we find a better way to do it.
You know, Commissioner, I would say that the police department doesn't have a problem managing the permits that come in. It's probably a good fit for us in that the traffic control and those issues are handled through the PD, and it would require our resources, so I don't mind it staying with us. You know, when I came into office in January and I started receiving these, I've issued several denials already. And, you know, I wanted to make sure I got with Mr. Criswell to make sure that I was going down a road that we wanted to go down, and then he raised this issue. So I think it being with the PD is a good fit, other than just is there a cost that we can charge for it.
Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. It's my thought that if it's not broke, don't fix it. So what am I saying when I say that? When I think about the Leavenworth Road Parade, when I think about the Silver City Parade, the Central Avenue Parade, Martin Luther King Parade, those are services to our citizens who are taxpaying citizens. They need that entertainment. If it's not breaking our bank as a city, I think we should leave it the way it is. But when I say maybe possibly fixing it, looking at the way that we approve a parade proposal, so, you know, using discretion. I also seen in there where it spoke about block parties. If we're just asking people to put the barriers up, get in their trucks and leave, well, that's a service to the citizen who pays taxes. So if it's not breaking our bank to provide those services for parades, I'd like to see maybe some changes in our discretion in which we choose who we choose, like if it's somebody outside of the state or the city who wants to get those kind of services, then they'll probably have to pay. Or even looking at the fact that it may be a marathon where people are raising money, or, you know, I'd like to see it kind of fit. You know, I don't think there's no one size fits all approach to what we're asking for.
Well, I agree with you 100%, and that was the conversation that we had. The Leavenworth Road Association Parade, we support that. We will continue to support that. You know, my gut tells me that, you know, I don't want to charge our local organizations. However, if we're going to allow an event to come in from outside Kansas City, Kansas, I do believe that it should be discussed, or at least considered, charging them, providing that the police department has enough resources to safely support that event.
Commissioner Markley.
So I think everybody's sort of generally on the same page here, and I'm wondering if this isn't something where staff is going to have to go back and do a little work to bring us a more solid proposal. I like the idea of looking at the marathons or the outside organizations differently. I think it's going to come down to legal helping us decide how do we define whether it's a marathon or a parade, or whether it's a local organization or not a local organization. Is that based on mailing address or something else? So personally, I'd like to see you guys sort of tackle some of those issues and come back to us and give us some sort of tiered approach, whether it's marathon versus parade or local versus not local, or whatever we come up with that fits a good legal definition that we can then approve at this committee.
As only a lawyer could say it. And I agree. You know, I don't think we should charge our homegrown, but anybody that comes outside from the community, you know, we want their money. And you need to tell us, you know, like in a 5K, you get $300. In a marathon, you get 10,000 or whatever the number is. But I'm just saying, because if they're going to come in there and shut our streets down, and for the grief that we would have to put up with some of the folks that like to go to the Legends on Saturday night, like my wife, you know, it's stuff that I think we need to, you guys come back with us and say, all right, everybody that's here, nothing. 5K pays this much, 10K pays this much. And not just the marathons, the bike riders and everybody else that wants to participate in the stuff that's from outside the community.
Well, we kind of thought that might be the sentiment of the commission or the subcommittee, but we didn't want to assume that we knew that, and so we will come back with a deeper review of what's out there, who's out there, and some costs that we might be able to reasonably charge outside groups for these kinds of activities. Okay? Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
Thanks.
Chief, this thing here says our last item of business consists of measurable goals for the police department. And if you look surprised, that's okay.
I have a response.
Okay.
Measurable goals. So the police department started an initiative. We actually kicked it off last week. It's the Safety First, Courtesy Always initiative within the department, revolving around customer service. The purpose of the initiative is to remind officers to always be safe when they're out on the streets so they can go home at the end of their shift. But at the same time, to always be courteous to our citizens. You know, not everybody they meet's a bad guy. They need to take the time, you know, yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, those kind of things. So when I was asked how would I gauge the success of that program, the first thing that popped in mind would be we would look and measure the whether we have a whether our internal affairs complaints go up or down in the area of attitude and conduct and harassment. So we've pulled those numbers, and since that initiative kicked off last Monday, over this year, we're going to look to see how well that message gets out to the troops and whether or not it has a direct impact on the number of internal affairs complaints. Our thought is that if we're reminding our officers to be courteous, that we will see a significant decrease in those type of issues, those type of complaints being brought forward. So that would be one of the goals that we set for the police department, as well as a way to measure it, if I was tracking the question right.
And you are, and I've already heard about it from one of your police officers.
Oh, and they're mailing it in? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Criswell reminded me to talk a little bit about how we've got the program set up. So there's a couple things. We redid the citizen satisfaction survey that the police department's had. We've had the same one for, man, probably 10 years, 15 years. So we went back and we changed the survey questions to mirror the questions that you all came up with for the community. But we added another one in, and that is, rate the customer service, the courtesy of the officer that handled your situation. It's a direct feedback that we give to the officers. The citizen can either mail the card in, it's detachable, it's got the officer's name, serial number, and a complaint number if a report was taken. They can mail that in. They can also use a QR code that's on the front for any smart device. They can scan it with their smart device. It takes them automatically to the survey that's on the internet. Those, when they fill those out, we get immediate feedback on really bad ones and really good ones. We address those immediately to try and correct behavior. And the last one is that we also made up a generic business card for our officers that have the same QR code on it, as well as the website address. So if an officer stops on the side of the road, helps somebody who's lost, helps change a flat tire, has contact with somebody other than taking a police report, they can the officer can write his name and serial number on there and encourage the citizen to go and fill out a survey on the service that they provided. So there's 3 different ways of us capturing the information, and then we're going to compare it to the complaints at the end of the year.
Very nice. Any questions?
I just want to say this, I like the QR code thing, and I know we did the community-wide survey, but we ad hoc, we picked who they went to. I like the QR, I like to go out in the newspaper, we send out to every resident, put a QR on there, and let them take a city survey. That's something that maybe we can look at further down the road as a commission. That's
okay.
The thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our meeting. And now it's Commissioner Markley's turn.
The Legends is going back to Cowtown. The Legends is going back to Cowtown.
I will now call the meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the Standing Committee agenda may do so when the item is up for discussion. You will have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. Please come forward to the microphone and you will be recognized. For accurate recording purposes, we ask all present to speak directly into a microphone. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Here.
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 Here. I will note that there are no minutes to approve this month. As you'll recall, our December 15th meeting was canceled. Commissioners received a blue sheet last Friday adding a new item under the committee agenda relating to the Dairy Farmers of America's proposal to locate in Kansas City, Kansas. This item will be heard prior to the measurable goals as outlined on the agenda. I will recognize Doug Bach to present this item.
Thank you, Commissioner. As the Commission's aware, for several months we have been talking with the Dairy Farmers of America about a potential location in Kansas City, Kansas for the relocation of their global headquarters. Last week we were very pleased to hear that their board had determined that the proposal that was on the table from the state of Kansas, the Schlitterpond EPR team, and the unified government was the one to which they wanted to move forward with. This has been a deal that's taken a fair amount of work as we've gone forward to be a a good proposal, which we believe is very fair to the dairy farmers for what they are bringing to our community, and at least 300 jobs that will be coming here, and really continue the advancement according to the master plan that we have looked at out in the Village West area. They called for a mix of the retail development, which really is the driving force to continue forward and pay off the STAR bonds that were issued for that site. Nothing about this project does anything toward the base of STAR bonds that are originally started and projected to pay off by the end of 2016. Anything in this project identifies incentives that are new to the community that we are currently not collecting. So with this, we have several members from the dairy farmers team that are here, along with our economic development team and finance. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our dairy farmers group. We have Joel Clark, Monica Massey, Mark Korsmeyer, and I believe also Alex Batchelor, who's in the back of the room with the dairy farmers group that are all here, their company, to represent them. And then of course we have George Brakovich with our economic development, Lou Levin, our chief financial officer, and Todd LaSala, our outside real estate attorney who represents us. So I'm going to turn this over to George, and he's going to start the presentation, and we'll move from there.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. George Brakovich with Economic Development. We've got a very brief presentation in terms of maybe structuring it. We've got some comments on project overview, and then actually like to turn it over at a certain point over to the DFA staff and let them talk about their project and what they envision, and then kind of come back to staff here to roll through the incentive structure and some of the early revenue projections that we see from the project. So having said that, project overview, this is the way we saw this project as it came in as a lead through the Department of Commerce. We weren't sure exactly who the company was, but this was, you know, we saw global headquarters, up to 400 jobs over 5 years, and the wages weren't something that we were seeing every day. So from a staff perspective, when we saw that lead come through, we got very excited and knew this was a project we'd like to pursue, especially with the office component. You'll know within our own tax abatement policy, we really offer a large abatement percentage in the pursuit of quality office. From a capital investment standpoint, we know this is at least 100,000 square foot Class A global headquarters. We believe the value of the land and the building are about $20 million. Add another $10 million in for equipment, new equipment, and probably equipment they're bringing. I think it's about a $30 million investment, and I'm sure the DFA folks will probably expand on that a little bit. There are options within this proposal. One is to expand the office or the headquarters building by an additional 50,000 square feet, and another option to build an innovation center, again, another additional 50,000 square feet as a standalone building. And we've got a site plan later in the presentation to kind of give you a better idea of how the layout might look. The previous slide had, you know, up to 400 jobs over 5 years. Within the development agreement, we called out some minimum standards. So at a minimum, it's 300 new jobs with an average annual base wage of $90,000. The project site itself is represented by the white star on this map. You see a lot of our other community partners, and highlighted there you see Cerner just south, Cabela's directly to the west, Schlitterbahn Water Park to the east, and then the Auto Mall and U.S. Soccer components to the north. Just to kind of bring the site in a little bit more, a few of you, well, all of you should be pretty familiar with this. We did this presentation as we advanced the Schlitterbahn project plan as part of their STAR district. And so, again, the color-coded areas, you see U.S. Soccer, again, represented in the light blue, the Auto Mall development in the tan above it, and then the water park in the yellow. Again, the black star here would just kind of designate this approximate 12-acre site that DFA is interested in. And again, here's the site plan. It gives you an idea of how the project will lay out. The front elevation rendering is one that was provided by the DFA staff. And if it's okay, guys, I don't know who's speaking or if you're all speaking, but maybe this is a great time to toss it back to you to talk about what your project looks like.
Okay. I'll start off, and Joel, you can jump in there, and Monica as well. My name is Mark Korsmeyer. I'm the Executive Vice President of Dairy Farmers of America. And on behalf of our 10,000 plus dairy farmers across the country, we are excited to relocate to Kansas City, Kansas area. We have been looking for quite some time. It's been a little bit of a challenge. We've looked all over the place, and we're a Midwestern organization, and we're glad that the Unified Government has worked with us accordingly, and can't wait to get over and be a resident of Village West area and the Legends. Joel, why don't you talk a little bit about the building and the site that we're going on?
Okay, the building's approximately 103,000 square feet, three-story facility, lots of glass exterior, bring in natural light for the workforce. Our building today was constructed back in the 1980s. We've been there since 1998. It's definitely not of the design that we're talking about with this new construction. So we're very excited. We've got a lot of employee engagement in terms of committees that are working on various aspects of the project. And we've been working on this actually for about 18 months prior to today, and looked at a lot of alternatives in terms of sites, and we feel like this site best suits our needs of company and our employees. We are a cooperative that's organized in the state of Kansas, so our roots are originally in Kansas in terms of organization, and obviously we are committed to the Kansas City metropolitan area. We have employees that live on both sides of the state line, and this suits our needs quite well.
Yeah, and I would echo what both Mark and Joel said. I'm actually a transplant for DFA to the area in 2006, and since that time we've grown considerably, and we've really created a diverse workforce. And this area offers the amenities that our employees of today and tomorrow are really seeking, and so we are very excited to be in this area and building a state-of-the-art global headquarters for them.
Commissioner King, you have a question?
Are you guys done?
Yes.
George, you got some more?
I'll roll through it as quick as I can.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Do it.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So from the incentive standpoint, again, this is a look at locally what was offered. It is the use of IRBs. We've used revenue bonds to finance other office projects. Per the existing policy, this project did qualify for a 75% tax abatement and a 10-year term. I broke out the actual individual components of the 75% abatement. Again, we start with the standard 45%. This is a 15% additional for quality office, 10% based on the level of capital investment that they're making, and then they have also agreed to participate in local minority and women business enterprises having a participation rate in the construction of their project. We think in looking at the projected values, we think that this pilot offers savings to DFA over the 10 years of up to about $5.5 million. Additionally, the project will qualify through the Department of Revenue for a sales tax exemption certificate on their construction materials. Just haven't called out a value on that, but we'll try to get that nailed down, that value actually narrowed down for the public hearing on the 26th. And then there is a pledge to offer $1 million from a STAR bond issuance for eligible site costs. Again, this is a site within an existing STAR district, and we are recognizing that. An additional component to this is the 98th Street S-curve. So this aerial shows both the current alignment of France Family as it comes underneath the 435 overpass there and connects into 98th Street. And then the overlay is showing the S-curve design. So the S-curve design was always part of the original Schlitterbahn agreement. The current alignment with that T connection of the elbow of 98th and France Family was always considered just a temporary solution. We knew that as the additional project areas would develop, there would come a time that the S-curve would need to be put in place. Having this office development proposal just kind of accelerated that time frame. So we wanted to highlight a few things related specifically to the S-curve. It does have a cost of about $4.5 million. There are 3 identified funding sources, but to accommodate the accelerated schedule and make sure that we hit these milestones, or give us the best chance to hit all of these milestones, we I think Lou's here to talk about if you have any questions, but we are contemplating the use of temp notes to get that project started. Again, moving the long-term financing back over to either STAR bond proceeds or State of Kansas or the Schlitterbahn Vacation Village, but we are requesting, and that's part of the fast track to the 26th, is the consideration of those issuing those temp notes. So a little bit on the, so that's the incentives package. So kind of back on the revenue side of things, from a property tax perspective, the current base taxes on that land produce approximately $40,000 a year in revenue. The pilot, and again, only for the 100,000 square foot headquarter building, year one of the pilot is projected at 135,000. There's incremental growth with each year of the pilot, and in year 10 you see that that value goes to 170,000. So we think that the additional value from the pilot payment during the term back to all the taxing jurisdictions is just shy of 1.5 million. Additionally, Mike Grimm and Lou, we're trying to get a grasp of, well, what about a sales tax perspective on this? And so they were able to use the International Council of Shopping Centers and some of the data that they have available. And so based on the average incomes or average salaries of the positions and how many jobs they're creating, we think that that can have, and again, those employees' buying power, we think that that will translate to at least another $150,000 in sales tax generated within that district just by introducing another 300 employees into that corridor. And back to the draft site plan. So Mr. Commissioner King, I tried to move through that as quickly as possible. We're available to answer any questions. I know Mr. LaSalle is here. He'd probably love to go through the executive summary if you would require that of him.
I think
Otherwise,
you should.
We're available to answer any questions.
Just kidding.
Love was exactly what I saw in his face.
Well, first of all, welcome to Kansas City, Kansas. You know, as excited as you are, we are excited as well. And realizing that the amount of money that your folks make, and I think the lady said something about employees of the future, and I think that was a great lead into what one of my concerns is. Cerna hired 12 kids from Kansas City, Kansas. They took one from each high school, and then they had 3 ones left over, and they hired some more. I don't necessarily want you to do that, but what I would like you to do is contact the school districts and tell them the requirements that it would take to work for you folks. And then that way our kids can have the opportunity to work for you. And you know, it's huge that you're coming. That's a lot of money. We're giving you a lot of money. I believe that's a small request. You know, we've got some outstanding students that would fit into this perfectly. And we got some really good housing additions too. So y'all can move over here. George's got a couple right by his house. Any commissioners got any questions?
I haven't had a question, but you can go ahead.
Commissioner Filbert.
Right on the back of our fearless leader, I would like to say that also that there's a workforce group already established in Wyandotte County, and that they're really working diligently to create pipelines for certain types of jobs. And if there is some way that you could work with the Wyandotte Economic Development and Workforce Group through the chamber, that would be great, because there's representatives from all the school districts, the community colleges, etc.
Commissioner Maddox, did you have a question?
I also want to say thank you and welcome to Kansas City, Kansas as well. My question was more along the lines of the 300 jobs. In the presentation, it said 300 jobs, and my question was, are those jobs already occupied, or is it 200 jobs and 100 is go? You know, where is that at?
We had 308 in our building today.
Okay.
In 72,000 square feet, and the projection by the time this building is completed that we'd be at 330, and that was the initial starting point for this project.
Yes, sir. Well, and along the lines of what Commissioner Kane said, you know, encourage maybe the employees to buy a home in our community where they'll spend money day and night and grow our tax base. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, I guess this is a question for legal. It looks like there's 3 resolutions. Do we have to do them one at a time?
If each commissioner's vote is the same on all 3, you can do them one time.
Do we anticipate any differences? Go for it, Commissioner.
Okay. I got to read them all? A resolution authorizing the county administrator executive development agreement with DFA. A resolution authorizing $4.5 million in street improvements. A resolution authorizing the I can't even say the word insurance. Insurance, yeah. Of the $4.5 million temporary notes, and for this also to be fast-tracked.
Need a second?
Move approval.
Move approval, he says.
A motion has been made and a second. Roll call. I can't even see our clerk back there today.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all very much for your presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got the superintendent's phone numbers when you want them.
That does take us to our measurable goals for various departments. I'll note that these are for information only. I'll let Joe Connor, our interim assistant county administrator, lead us through these 4 departments.
Sure. Thank you very much, Commissioners. And as you're aware, departments are starting to come up with their measurable goals as part of the initiative from the Commission. And this is kind of the first round for some departments that report to me currently. As they get, I mean, there'll be more coming in future months, but for now we want to start with these. And you know, spend just a short amount of time, and again, as we start to refine this process, we want to hear from you as commissioners. Are we hitting the mark? You want more information? Is it too much? Does it make sense? So that's kind of where we're at with this. So this is my group of guinea pigs, I guess you want to say. And but I think they're well prepared. I think you'll enjoy their presentation. So we'll start with our new Parks and Rec director, Jeremy Rogers. For those of you who haven't met him, Jeremy started December 30th, and he's in the hot seat first. Tim, can you pull up the wrong one?
Bottom left, right there. Perfect. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jeremy Rogers. I'm the new Parks and Recreation Director, as Joe pointed out. So it's very nice to be here with you guys. I'm here to talk about our Parks and Recreation revenues and how we can increase that over the next 10 and a half months. As you can see, these are some of our main revenue streams. They come from shelters, fishing licenses, boating permits, and that bottom is all on the recreation side. As you can see, we've gone up each year and continue to grow. These are our year-to-date revenues. As you can, the 2015 is my projection. That is what I'm here to tell you guys, that I would like to increase our revenues for our department by 10%. That would take us up to almost 700,000. So we have a long task ahead of us, but I have a great staff, and here's how we're going to do that. Number one is the upgrades that we made to Wyandotte County Lake. It is our #1 revenue source. It is our largest park. It is the heart of our Parks and Recreation Department. Some of the upgrades we've made there, we added 6 new fishing docks. Well, we replaced 6 new fishing docks. We took out the old ones that were all the styrofoam with the mold and algae growing on them, and replaced them with the new rubberized.
Could you pull the mic a little closer to you, please? Thank you.
Sorry about that. The other things that we're doing at the lake, we're renovating the concession stand. It was built in 1930. There's some discrepancy. Is either built sometime between 36 and 39 and has only minor improvements over the years. So we're renovating that, and that will help generate revenue. The second thing we're doing is hiring key staff. Number one, they hired me to lead the department, so I think that's a good idea. Secondly, I'm currently working to hire a recreation program coordinator. I am looking for somebody with a skill set with some marketing background that can help us improve our department in that area. We're looking to our overall marketing. We have not done a whole lot in this area, so anything that we do will generate revenue. Our overall department awareness. We are one of the few Parks and Recreation departments in the whole state of Kansas that doesn't have a Facebook page. I'm meeting with Edwin tomorrow to go over that. With social media and all that, that's free marketing. Yes, it needs to be limited and it needs to be oversight, but we have the staff that can do that. So that will definitely help there. Secondly, piggyback off the police department, the QR code, everything that goes out from our department, whether it be emails, flyers, anything that comes out of our department will have a QR code on it that will take people directly to our department's website. And finally, we will do monthly reviews to track our revenues to see where we stand and if we need to make any changes or anything like that. So that concludes my presentation.
Questions for Jeremy?
Yeah, got some questions. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello.
This is actually my first time meeting you and seeing you, but in my first term, I've been kind of somewhat a guy that clings to Parks and Rec and, kind of closely look at what happened. So I've got a few questions along those lines. And one of my questions are, is there a possible way, like every 2 years or 3 years, and this is maybe something you can interact, where all the parks are like analyzed, their equipment, from the basketball goals down to the pavement, the benches, to where we are annually making those upgrades, maybe every 3 years, systematically to parks. And I don't know that that's happened in the past, but I'd like to see more of that, because what I had to do in my first term was, kind of get funding going toward the various parks in the area. So,
absolutely. I received a request from Commissioner Philbrook, and it consisted of wanting to upgrade our parks. I want to do a complete park inventory of what we have. I'm still learning where our parks are and what we have exactly. So we are doing from head to toe complete every park inventory, and that's going to be ongoing. And once I do get that completed, I will have numerous things to point out and changes that need to be made, things like that.
Yes, sir. And then the other thing I wanted to know is, had they spoke to you about the grass mowing in parks across the city? That seemed to have been a dilemma the first 3 years I was here. So were there any updates or discussions about ways that we could keep the grass maybe monitored and mowed during the summer so that the parks are appealing?
Yes, I have heard that that is a problem in the past, and I am working to see what exactly those problems are. Those problems, the cause of those problems has not been pinpointed yet, but I am working, and hopefully I will see some things that can be changed between now and mowing season, which is right around the corner.
Okay.
I just want to add to that in the budget, if you remember, there's a youth program, and so that we're working on buying the equipment and come up with the process, and that'll be part of what Jeremy would do to help with the mowing. So I just want to remind the commission that that project will come online here this summer.
Yes, sir. And that's what I was going to ask next, because I was trying to find out how would the youth or the young people get involved in that grass mowing. Would they go to Parks and Rec and maybe apply, or does that come through another department?
Right. Well, as far as I can tell, we're going to run through HR like any other job. We're going to hire through, and they'll apply through HR, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. Thank you.
Chairman Mark, when it's my turn.
Commissioner Walker, go ahead.
Jeremy, I look forward to meeting you. I'm sorry I could not attend tonight. A lament, I guess, some might call it a complaint, a lament that I have had a number of people address me on is that we have a substantial waiting list for boat slips at Wyandotte County Lake, and not being familiar with how much space we have or if additional ones could be constructed. I've been told that we could certainly add more boat slips, either as extensions to the existing ones. I was under the impression that we had recently extended some of them, but that we did not extend or make available enough to put a dent in that list of people that are waiting for a place to put their boat and use the lake. I asked the question because it seems like to me we could certainly make more slips available for, and I think most of the people that rent there are Wyandotte County people, and make that more available. I certainly don't have cost figures, and I don't want to inject so many boats that it kind of ruins the, ambiance of the lake that people describe to me when they take their pontoon out. But I'd be interested in your either assessment tonight or something in the near future as to the viability of that. That seems to be, if anything approaches me on Wyandotte County Lake, other than we have too many geese, and that creates a problem down at the south end eventually every year. It's that we don't have enough boat slips, and it takes too long to get one. I'll listen to your response.
Great. Well, thank you for bringing that up. The current wait for a boat slip at Wyandotte County Lake right now is about 5 years. So that is one of the things, red flags that came up. I will be doing, as part of my park inventory that I talked about earlier, I will be looking at that. I don't have an answer for you tonight on the solution for that, but I know, yes, we can add more slips. However, I don't know if that's reasonable yet. I hope to find out very soon, and through my park inventory, we'll have that for you.
Well, I'm hopeful that we can address that perhaps in this year's budget or in strategic planning, at least have some idea as to that, or perhaps there's an alternative location for a second site for maybe fishing boats, or the smaller boats, the non-pontoon boats that would make that wait. 5 years is a long time, and a lot of changes can happen to a person. So I look forward to your report. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, I'm really enthused about the fact that you're wading in right in the middle of everything, taking the bull by its horns and reevaluating our park system, because I know that was one of the high priorities when we did our survey. And believe me, I get comments on parks every week. I really believe that it sounds like what you're planning on doing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you're planning on putting together a comprehensive plan for how you're going to address different parks, what parks to keep, what parks to get rid of, which ones to improve, etc., and create a long-term improvement project. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is spot on. That is my goal for this department, is to create a master plan and create goals and give this department a roadmap to go by.
Amen and hallelujah.
Is the Parks and Rec Department still currently under the County Administrator's Office now?
Yeah, it's reporting directly to me.
It's reporting directly to you. Okay. If you had two things that you analyzed and seen in your early stages as Director of the Parks and Rec, what are two things that you think really need to be fixed at the Parks and Rec level, so we can kind of take this into the budget session?
That's a tough one. Well, from the very beginning, there is no master plan in place. That's number one. I've met with a couple different consulting firms on that. That is a very long and tedious process that I anticipate going through. It does come with a price, though, but that is my goal.
Okay.
That's number one.
Okay.
Number two is going back to my overall department awareness. We are a very large department compared to other departments in the state. We're maybe the 5th biggest department in the whole entire state of Kansas, which is pretty impressive. So people need to know what we have. We need to make our department, our citizens in Wyandotte County more aware of what we have and what we offer.
So that plays into, you said, bringing in some program coordinators who know how to promote.
Absolutely. Market, promote, and implement.
If there are no additional questions for Mr. Rogers, we will let him off the hook and move on to department number 2.
Sure. The next department up is our 311 department. Brett Deichler is here along with Luke Folscroft. Brett is the department head over 311 and delinquent tax, and Luke is the manager of 311. So I'll turn it over to the gentleman there to go through a presentation.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk a little bit about what's going on with 311. I'm going to keep this at a high level just to kind of give you an idea of the real important factors and the things that are going on there right now. And a lot of that circles around what I call managing for results and how to basically create operational efficiency and transparency in government. Starting with that, go ahead, Luke. We talk about asking the question about transparency and accountability at the forefront of operational efficiency and improved services, and it requires these 3 items right here. When you're looking at strategic business alignment, integrated technology solutions, and advanced communications, it kind of brings everything into perspective, but we've got a host of those things that are out there right now, and Mr. Todd Kinney is going to help support some of that for us. And he will talk definitely a little more in detail about some of the technologies that we're going to put in place. Let's go to the next slide real quick. But I wanted to bring a high level focus real quick about where we are today. Look at it again. And this basically talks about the historical data and some of the things that we are looking at with the initial hardware. And as you can tell, without going into great detail, some of the call volumes there. I made an announcement a couple of weeks back, or really about a month ago, at the operations meeting that we're approaching our 1 millionth call, and we're probably within about 30,000 calls of doing that. We'll probably see that here in the next couple of months. That's a big, it's a big benchmark for us. I think it goes to show some of the things that we do. Look, one more thing real quick, and talking about how we actually answer that type of call or those types of call volumes. As you know, we started off in 2008. We had 8 staff members. We were basically downsized, which is absolutely understandable due to the economic crisis that we went through. But it cut us right in half, and we still basically maintain a very solid response rate. When you look at some of the things we're taking, municipal court is 44% of our call volume right now, which at the onset of this thing, I understood it to be a problem in district court or in municipal court, basically, for them to even answer the phones. Mondays and Tuesdays are really, really heavy for them. We said, how do we get into that? How do we help support that? So a lot of our call volume is going into that. We signed an agreement with the judge down there to support some of those services. And you can look down.
Go ahead and pull that microphone a little closer.
Look down the list. I apologize, Joe. For the UG Treasury, BPU, and District Court, they're big numbers too. Now, the more important things are these tags at the bottom when you start looking at calls presented, versus how we handle those calls at an 83 percentile right now with 4 staff members. We've looked at, and we'll talk just in a minute about centralized versus decentralized staffing. We've looked at a way to help subsidize our current 4 staff members, and basically during those high peak volume times to go in and have Luke basically as our coordinator. This is better. Okay, sorry about that. Have Luke as our coordinator basically call and utilize backup staff members who have been trained that are not necessarily in the central location of 301 but are throughout the building to help support some of those call volumes. The max call time right now is about 1 minute and 34, where the queue time looks like it's 55 seconds, and 27 seconds after that rings, we answer it. So we're still doing pretty good. The abandonment rate's sitting at 17%. I don't think that's alarming. I do think it needs to be adjusted, and we need to probably, I've got a goal that's here to measure and help actually align those strategies to get those calls, because my theory is if you can't answer the phone, you can't answer the request because you don't know what it is. One more page here, Luke. This next slide talks a little bit about the future without going into great detail. We've got monies that have been set aside to basically reinvent the architecture down there now. Since we were born in 2008, there's been, as with all technologies, there's been a vast improvement in Microsoft and the products that we utilize. The stuff now that basically is out there, which is Microsoft, is going to be a 2015 package. If we can upgrade to that, it's at least 2013. Is very dynamic. It brings on the opportunity for mobility, so the constituent can basically pop us from the phone, doesn't have to wait in line. We can get that, track those types of requests, etc.
It also allows us to put advanced reporting models back together, including real-time dashboards, which are super important. In that dashboard from the project itself, I've basically gone back as part of the requirements and said, hey, we need to be able to look at what's really important to the county administrator's office, to the commissioners, et cetera, and to put those types of real-time data feeds into that dashboard so you can get it right from your phone and look and see what's going on in your district. Let's hit one more real quick. This next slide talks a little bit about what we show as departmental call percentages, again, and looking at municipal court. Once again, 43%, almost 44%. Hit this next one, Luke. This is really important here. The average queue times and those types of things we talked about a minute ago, it begs the question of how do we actually get there and measure a goal and an objective for this, this type of environment. Go back up, Luke. When we ask that question, we say, let's finalize the statement of work. It's real obvious. We need to get to work and get that thing done. We also will complete the proposed 311 upgrades by the close of September, which is the end of the third quarter, which will ultimately allow us to get into the real-time reporting methodologies at the end of this year, and also the revised ad hoc reports that we kind of have some of those still from the old days, but now we're moving into a new, more dynamic reporting methodology, which will allow us as an organization internally from an administrative perspective to coordinate basically not only what 311 does, but the backside of the coin, what the unified government does on a department by department specific basis. So, you know, we should continue to answer calls in less than 1 minute like we're trying to do to reduce that abandonment rate and close all 80% of all the active work orders, which is a very big deal for us. We get a lot of callbacks. We also try to call back and initialize contact to help keep people informed, but we get a lot of callbacks on things that are out there that are static that should be active and wanting to know what's going on with that type of request. And it's very important for the constituent to be able to access us. In the past, it's been a little difficult because the wait time's been tough, but like I said, once we start putting in active measures with the mobility piece and the social media real-time chat upgrades that Mr. Kinney is going to allow us to get into, I think it's going to help the 311 department actively control the data to where we can model what's not only going on with 311, but we can model everything that's going on in the government operations, clear back to the cost allocations and the resources required to complete that. I think that's it. I can discuss this. I put this on the backside here as an MFR results pop-up everything here, Luke, all at once. What I basically did is put a quick model together that shows when you do Microsoft Link, which is a telephony piece, we're going to help kind of vet that process again to get our phone operations back in order for cost allocations. It also talks about the database and basically what I call a central repository to allow us to get down to doing these things over here. When you take everything in and funnel it through that architecture there, which were those three things I talked about initially, it allows you to perform most effectively. In reading this right column, you can see as accurately as you need be. You can collect the data and you can report it. So we can receive requests directly from you that says, tell me A, B, and C, and we can report that. So this is the model that allows us to get there. But it all starts with managing for results. It's not about putting widgets together. It's about getting effective outcomes, not just output. You need to measure the outcome, and that's extremely important for all of us to remember as we move forward with this dynamic rebuild of this operation. Questions?
It's great that you're already tracking some data because it makes it a whole lot easier for us to create measurable goals when we have something to start from. So I appreciate that. Commissioner Philbrook.
So that means you'll be able to tell where the plug is in the stream. If something gets slowed down, somebody calls up, they need to be something needs to be taken care of, you'll be able to see where things are slowed down, so that can be taken care of as well.
It should, yes.
Is that okay?
Yep, we'll have all the geodata and the things that tag it literally where it's at.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Commissioner Walker?
Mr. Deichler, how many of your phone calls relate to code enforcement, and how are those handled when they come in there?
That's a very good question,
I'll give you some background on this. We have at different times over a long period, both when I was an employee and more recently, suggested that employees or to the public as well as employees that complaints that are filed or made retain anonymity. And yet I have recently been provided a sampling of some complaints that were, and I don't know that they originate with you. I'm certainly not suggesting that, but in which they identify the complaining party. And then that information seems to inevitably transfer to the target of those code enforcement complaints. Now, if we're wanting to encourage people to report code violations and to protect that identity, it has to begin with the intake, whether that intake is at code enforcement or whether it is at 311. Can you comment on your role as 311 with code enforcement? And it's certainly an issue that has troubled me because this creates neighborhood problems. If you have a neighbor that is not maintaining his property and you report it, the fear is that the neighbor will then find out and the situation will become even worse. And so protecting the identity of a complaining party is a critical piece of effective code enforcement, and we're not getting it somewhere in the system.
Sure.
Okay, I'll listen to your response.
All right, Commissioner Walker, that's an absolutely great question, and it was at the forefront of our development clear back in 2008 that was asked as well. I know that the initial development allowed us to click a column that it was considered AAA anonymous. It would basically wipe off all the incoming data through the Cisco file when someone called in. That would allow us to keep the anonymity intact once we forwarded that information over to Maui. Right now we have received about 4,600 calls in the last year that relate to code-specific violations that were forwarded to Greg Talkins' group at NRSC. The issue that we have and we're still experiencing with the Maui system is the lack of integration between the Microsoft Dynamics-based product and the only Oracle-based, correct me if I'm wrong, product that we have left in the Unified Government System, which is the Maui and Excella product. In stating that, we've always tried to look to basically be able to integrate those, and I think in the past that when we have put work order requests out there, there's been some of that information transfer. I'm not saying necessarily from us, but we were sending emails that had certain fields that were stated inside the email so they could actually have someone at NRC enter that data. That will not be the case here with the new system. We're going to work on a way, like I said, back in 2008 it was our intent to keep that anonymous, and I know that we would even go as far as asking, because people that would call in and say, hey, I want to be anonymous for those very reasons that you stated. And in stating that, we've kept that confidentiality intact. That doesn't mean that everyone that's called in has requested that. So some of that's probably migrated its way into the Maui system, but in the future we need to be very diligent about how we protect that content, and maybe it's just something that's an exclusion based on that criteria alone at the front end until someone requests it otherwise. Because I honestly can't see anyone calling in and reporting their neighbor and wanting to know, them to be out there just in case, just to keep the peace. But we're working towards that goal. The new system, we will be very cognizant once again in refining and meeting that goal. And I think that with working in the future and working with Todd Kinney's group, we will be able to find an adequate resolution to not only help that at the front end, but to actually expedite these types of requests, because they're very, very time consuming for our staff. With the lack of integration with Maui, and we're working towards an answer for that now as we work through the statement of work. So does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Well, I think unless someone says to you, I want the individual to know who I am and that I reported you, I would assume the desirable course is there's no reason for the code inspector in most situations to have if I wanted to be called back, that's one thing. If I say, look, I want to know that something's been done, here's my name, my phone number, and I don't care if he finds out or she finds out, that's one thing. But on the other hand, there's no reason for the code enforcement people, when they go out, they are confronted by people who are not happy. They're not going to be happy, and the best policy would be for them, in my opinion, is not to have the information, not be able to defer off the responsibility that they're just doing their job, but Joe Blow down the street reported you, and I know that has happened. I can give you a specific example in my neighborhood. So I think we should address that not only from 311, but at the code enforcement level too. There's no reason for anybody enforcing these to know who called it in and where it came from. And that's my opinion, and I will pursue that. But I'm glad to hear that you're working on this issue and that you're aware of it. So thank you. I'll relinquish the microphone.
Anyone else have questions? Thank you to Brett and Luke. And
Thanks
we will
very much,
pass it
guys.
off once again to Joe to introduce our next report.
Okay, the next one is from our Department of Technical Services, and you're familiar with Todd Kinney. He's presented before this committee before, and he's going to talk about what DOTS is going to be looking at in this coming year.
Good evening, Commissioners, Administrators. I'm Todd Kinney, Department of Technical Services, and I'll be talking to you about the Department of Technical Services 2015 Key Performance Goals. These goals are in two areas: customer service and system and service delivery. These are two areas the administration has asked us to focus on and improve. In the area of customer service, our first goal is to successfully deploy the 311 Citizen Portal and CRM Dynamics upgrade in partnership with 311 Operations, as Brett mentioned. Our next goal is to successfully deploy System Center Service Manager and an internal self-service portal. Similar to the Citizens Portal, internally employees will be able to make requests, track requests, see maintenance notices, and things of that nature. System Center Service Manager also automates a lot of tasks to help us mitigate our human resources limitation and provide better service. And lastly, once the first two are completed, that will allow us to reestablish Extension 8800 as a dedicated internal technical support line, enabling 311 operations to streamline their operations to focus on citizens, and for technical support to focus on technical internal tickets, and we're not competing with the limited resources that 311 has. And once these are deployed, it will allow us to increase first call resolution, and that will then become measurable. It will allow us to decrease the total resolution time. Instead of going through 2 hops for technical support, you go straight to technical support. And it will also enable immediate resolution, something that's not available now because we go through 311 and that's not their skill set. Once the calls are coming directly to technology, we think a large portion can be solved right there on the phone call if you have a technical person taking that call. The next goal will be for 98% of technical support calls to go through the help desk. Right now, it's our estimate that roughly 25% go to individual staff, and the primary reason is that immediate resolution is not available at 311. It's not a problem with 311. That's just not what they're geared for. And so people will call directly or send an email, and that can get lost. It can result in an email that doesn't get heard for a week, and then we have an unhappy internal customer. In the area of system and service delivery, our first goal is to deploy our new storage area network. That was a huge acquisition that the administration and the commissioners supported in acquiring this year, and that will help alleviate some of our storage issues. And once that's in place, we will maintain 80% maximum storage utilization. We're at about 95% now. And we'll take a look at that visually. In 2014, we were at 95% utilization, so the area in red, the unused portion, when we get there, that's when we have an issue. That's as much room as we have to work with, and that can actually disrupt operations. If someone dumps a large set of data, it'll shut down a system. And what we hope to do in 2015, or we will do, is maintain 80% maximum utilization, and that'll give us a much larger area to react and manage storage when it becomes an issue. And we anticipate that storage will no longer disrupt operations. Staying with system and service delivery, our goal is to maintain 99% system and service availability. And what that translates to is a maximum of 3.65 days per year or 7.2 hours per month unscheduled downtime annually. Any more than that, and we don't meet that service level, we'll be sending a report to the administration as to why and how we're going to get back to 99%. Looking at that visually in 2014, our manual records show us at 98%, and our goal for 2015 is 99%. You may say that's pretty easy, that's just 1%. But when you're talking about uptime, what that translates to in 2014 was 7 days per year total, or 14.4 hours per month. That 1% increase in system availability cuts that downtime in half to, throughout the whole year, only 3.65 days per year or 7.2 hours per month. And of course, downtime, there is a cost associated with it, because when the systems are down, people are getting paid and not being able to operate. So, in summary, for our 2015 key performance goals, under the area of customer service, we will successfully deploy the 311 Citizens Portal and CRM upgrade in partnership with 311 Operations. We will successfully deploy System Center Service Manager, and we will reestablish the Extension 8800 dedicated help desk for technical support internally here. And once those are accomplished, it will enable us to establish baseline goals for customer service performance metrics. So we will then go back and review our goals, and we'll have baseline numbers for all those areas we mentioned before: response time, first call closure rate, et cetera, et cetera. Under system and service delivery, we will maintain 80% maximum utilization. We won't go higher than that without mitigating it, and that will prevent storage from disrupting anyone's operations. We will achieve and maintain 99% system and service availability. That's it. We'll take any questions and answers and give answers.
Questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Walker?
Chairman? I guess the goals sound, reasonable, and, you make them sound easy. I'm sure there's much more involved than the, brief statement that you made about it. I'm interested in storage capacity and differentiation between storage capacity and archival capacity, or if there is any, and also the protocols on the retention of emails or various other kinds of documents, data, etc., and how that plays into what our storage capacity is. And perhaps I lack an IT background, so I don't know perhaps the correct jargon. For example, do we have every email and every document that's ever been created on our data system? If I ask you to go back 20 years and find a document, can you find that document given enough time and enough description?
Well, technology can't. I believe 20 years ago, most of those are going to be physical documents other than those that have been scanned in, and those we will have. We'd have to know specifically what you were asking about to go back and see how far our archiving goes. With regards to email archiving, that is really under the control of the legal department and the records manager. And right now, I believe they are have a policy of save everything after 24 hours. That does affect our storage capacity, but given that that is the current policy until those change, the changes that we've put in place and the new SAN that we'll be implementing, we don't anticipate that will be a problem for us. We'll be able to handle that for the foreseeable future.
Okay, I just curious about the prevailing industry standards protocols on the retention of that. It seems like over the years we have continued to spend money to add storage capacity that With few exceptions, most of those documents, emails, data, etc., that we are storing after and I don't know what the appropriate period of time would be, are never going to be accessed again by anyone. And I guess the question becomes, is this a situation where as data continues to expand and we continue to operate, that periodically we're going to have to buy more and more storage capacity in some form? Or could we rid ourselves of data that is, one, either no longer relevant or has no, I mean, there are a number of guides you could use. I mean, you could, look for civil litigation, criminal litigation, perhaps records. I don't know how to articulate it over the phone as clearly, but it does seem that we buy storage capacity periodically to retain records that I'm not convinced there's a statutory basis for the perpetual retention of documents, and it always seems to come with a big price tag. So I'm curious in what the industry protocols are, more so than what, and no offense to legal, because I was legal, what legal's, answer is. This is costing us money we could allocate to other purposes, such as we heard tonight, playground equipment perhaps, and so forth. And if there's a purpose in keeping it, then fine. But just to have it, to say that we have it, I think is there's a point at which it's no longer relevant to current events and no longer will never be accessed by another human being. So it's just out there. All right, I've offered my opinion, and you know what my concern is and my issue. I would like to have a better understanding at some point of the protocols for storage and whether we're wasting money on storage capacity that could be allocated to other much more relevant services to our constituents. And I'm not saying throw things away, the last 5, maybe the last 10 years, but 15 years ago, what are those emails and data? What are they going to contribute to the present services we're providing? If there's no cost savings, then keep them forever. That'd be fine. But it just seems like we're consistently adding expenses and the storage capacity at periodic intervals. And again, maybe I don't understand IT well enough to know that this is really a very small cost and not worth addressing the issue. All right. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Anyone else? Thank you very much. I think we have purchasing left.
Yep. Last but not least is Sharon Reed. Sharon's been our purchasing manager since October, and she was the interim manager for about 1.5 years before that. And she's really doing some nice things in purchasing, and I look forward to her presentation this evening. So Sharon, it's all yours.
Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Sharon Reed. I'm with the Procurement and Contract Compliance. And my measurable goal today is the satisfaction survey.
Could you pull the microphone a little closer? Thanks.
Is a satisfaction surveys that would help us identify our internal and external customers' expectations of our department, to help us to establish our service expectations with our internal and external clients. This survey will help us identify the areas in which we are lacking, where we can improve in, and I hope that this customer service will let us know where we can initiate to create transparency, accountability, and open up our lines of communications. Just some of our questions for our external for our external customers would be, how we rate our professionalism. And that's for all of our buyers and even me, for us to meet the expectations of being professional and extending whatever courtesy we can to our internal and external customers. when you contacted or visited procurement services, you know, did you get the information that was required that you needed? Hopefully every time that we make a contact with anyone that's internal and external, that we are definitely meeting those needs and issues. And then how satisfied are you with the information provided and the ease of use of our website? Currently, we are building our e-procurement site to where bidders can come in and then they can download our bids and RFPs. Not only that, we recently created our SharePoint where our internal customers can go and access all of our contracts, our certificates of insurance, any of the agreements that we have from that's initiated from '09 to currently. And so that was a great initiative within our procurement department for that outreach. Did anyone please provide suggestions on how we can improve our services to the community, whether in person or via our website? We're open to start this lines of communication with our internal and external customers so we can help, once again, build that ease of transparency and to find out what their needs are so that we can help bridge that gap. Some of our external questions would be, you know, rate our courtesy and professionalism, you know, positive problem-solving attitudes. We just really want to know how we're doing so we can start to change the face of the procurement department with our internal and external customers. How well do we communicate in different areas? Or we're allowing the vendors to come in and to provide their products and services, and how do we pass that information on to the different departments to ensure that they are heard or we get that feedback? How would you rate us as far as helping the vendors deal with problems? And that's one of the initiatives, as I said, getting that information to the departments and letting them know that we're listening to them. We recently, last year, we did an outreach with the BPU called Let's Talk Initiative, where we invited some of the local vendors in to showcase their products and services, and we did an outreach within that initiative of how to do business with the unified government, and that included the accounting department, the business license, and BPU was also involved in that initiative. And we got a lot of great feedback. People were very interested in that, and we're going to do one again this year. And just go through how well to rate our departments. We were going to look at putting this out once again on doing a QR code so we can make sure we get the feedback. This is the first time of doing this initiative, so we're going to benchmark it, hopefully that we can get an 80% within for doing this the first year, and then we're going to use all of our resources to initiate the feedback and do all of the improvements that we can to ensure that we're involving our internal and external customers. And I think that's pretty much it.
Questions? Ms. Reed, you are off the hook. No questions at all. Thank you all for presenting tonight, and thank you, Joe, for making arrangements for that. And that is all for us. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hal.
Hello?
I just said thanks, Hal.
Joseph?
It's what?
Bye.
We just said bye.
Okay, goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.